We had a chance to speak with Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson at Essence Festival in New Orleans over the weekend. I met Justice Jackson at a conversation hosted by the Global Black Economic Forum. We had a wide-ranging conversation. It was a deep dive into her book, Lovely One, her first 3 years on the bench and the direction of the court and the country. The roughly 45-minute conversation began as the justice walked out to Cheryl Lynn's iconic song, Got to Be Real, and read a passage from her book.
Was it, they wondered, that someone with such an unusual name and from such an unconventional background came to stand in such an unprecedented place, swearing an oath on 2 stacked Bibles that symbolized how far our nation had traveled?
That was a portion of the passage she read. Here's part of our conversation with Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Justice Jackson. And we are so grateful for your time and the opportunity to have the conversation. Happy anniversary, because it was 3 years ago this past week that you were sworn in as the first Black woman to the Supreme Court.
It's hard to believe, but yes.
And I so vividly remember when President Biden was introducing you as a nominee, and you approached the podium, and among the first words you said was, "I do know that one can only make it this far by faith."
That is true.
And I think that that must have resonated a lot with the people like me, grew up in church, and we sang the song, "We've come this far by faith." And that plays a big role in your story.
Yes.
Give us a sense of the role that faith plays in your life, in your success, in your trajectory.
Well, I'm come from, as you suggest, a family of faith. In my book, I talk a lot about my grandparents. I started writing this book within a few months of the time that you talk about, that right after I was confirmed, because I knew that I had only been able to get this far because of the support that people had shown me and the direction that they had given me in terms of my own faith. So my grandmother, who was the matriarch of our family, would take us to church when I was little. One of my biggest memories, the grounding memory for me, was going to Black church with my grandmother and singing the hymns and hearing the Bible stories and the verses. And that kind of grounding in who you are and where your help comes from has been very, very helpful for me getting through this current situation.
You write at one point, "I walk daily along corridors where few Black Americans have been, much less worked." The Supreme Court was established in 1789. There were 115 justices before you. How much of a weight is it for you to be the first Black woman?
Well, again, I mean, I don't know if it's a weight, it is privilege. I feel extraordinarily lucky, given the background that I explained to you about the many, many Black women and men who could have been appointed and did not get appointed because of the times in which they lived. And so I think I feel enormously grateful. I think I'm aware that people are watching. They want to know how I'm going to perform in this job and in this environment. And so I'm doing my best work, as well as I can do, because I want people to see and know that I can do anything just like anyone else.
Last week, yes. Last week in a dissent, you wrote that you predict executive power will become completely uncontainable. Just today, a professor was quoted in the New York Times talking about you and said, "Justice Jackson is trying to raise the alarm. Whether she is writing for the public or a future court, she is making a larger point about what she sees as not just the errors of the majority's position, but the dangers of it as well." Does the current state of American democracy concern you?
So I am actually heartened that people are focused on the court and the work that we're doing, on the state of the government. Because again, as I mentioned, as a democracy, the people are supposed to be the rulers. The people are supposed to be leading in terms of the policies and the way in which our government operates. And so the more that people are engaged with our institutions, I think, the better. And so what I feel that I've been privileged to do is use the writings that I do, the work that I do, to explain my views about the way our government does and should work, the way the court does and should work. I think the nice part about being on the court is that you have the opportunity, whether you're in the majority or in the dissent, to express your opinions. You mentioned Justice Breyer. One of the things he used to say, sometimes people say, well, the court is so secretive. Nobody knows what goes on in the court. And he used to always say, I don't understand that. We are the only institution where people actually write their opinions when they vote. They tell you exactly what it is. And I just feel that I have a wonderful opportunity to tell people, in my opinions, how I feel about the issues. And that's what I try to do.
I'm going to circle back on that. Just there's a famous quote that says, if you're not scared, you're not paying attention. And just because you have such a seat, a unique seat, are you concerned about the state of democracy today?
You know, my feelings about the state of democracy have been expressed in the context of my opinions when issues come up related to democracy. So it's hard to say, you know, am I concerned in a general way? The concerns that I have articulated in my opinions.
I understand you've taken up boxing.
I have.
What made you get into that?
So actually, you know, I was looking for a physical outlet, so stepping up my, and one of my detail members is a boxer, and she said, you should really try this. And I know someone who can train you, and he's been great. I really enjoyed it.
In one dissent, you wrote, with let them eat cake obliviousness, today the majority pulls the ripcord and announces colorblindness for all. In a more recent dissent, you wrote, with deep disillusionment. And I'm not asking you about a particular case, but I am curious if you feel that some rulings pose an existential threat to the rule of law.
Well, I wrote that in one of my opinions, so I guess the answer is yes. You know, I think that we have different kinds of cases that have different implications. And sometimes, you know, the court will consider issues that actually relate to the lives of almost everyone in the country. Sometimes we have cases that are very narrow, that they really only affect a small number of people. And sometimes we have cases that have those kinds of implications. And, you know, are there cases in which there are issues that have that kind of significance? Absolutely.
Let's go back to your freshman year of college at Harvard. It's right before your 18th birthday. You share this story in the book. You also shared it at your confirmation hearing, that you're feeling down, lacking a little confidence. Can I do the work that's required here at Harvard? And a black woman who you hadn't seen before and haven't seen since comes, passes you by, looks at you and simply says, persevere.
Yes, ma'am.
In the book you said, it's one word, but it was everything.
It was everything.
As we sit here today, finally, is there one word that you would give the audience, perhaps for somebody who is feeling doubtful, skeptical, unsure, uncertain?
Oh my goodness. I don't know that I would have a particular word. That story has obviously stuck with me because it felt like being given a lifeline. You know, I was in this very strange new environment, as many freshmen who go off to college, you feel like you're a fish out of water, you're not familiar with this set of circumstances, and it was like, a stranger giving me the key to survival on campus. A Black woman, like I said, who I didn't know, who just whispered that to me as we passed each other. So I would tell them, everyone, that kind of encouragement is something that we should all be giving one another in this very challenging time. We need to be there for one another, supporting each other, uplifting each other. I don't know whether that woman saw the look on my face or whatnot, but she felt compelled to reach out to me. And so I would just encourage you all to do that for even strangers that you meet who may need a word from you right now.
Justice Jackson, we thank you so much for the time.
Our deep gratitude to Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson for making the time to talk with us. Her book, Lovely One, is now available wherever books are sold.